Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Dozens killed in Moscow subway bombing. Arab summit ends without major resolutions. And Obama makes a surprise stop in Afghanistan. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
At least 37 people were killed and 65 others were wounded in a twin suicide bomb attack that targeted 2 metro rail stations in the Russian capital, Moscow. According to security sources, the twin explosions, which are Russia's bloodiest attacks in nearly 6 years, were reportedly carried out by 2 female suicide bombers.
In response, Russian President Dmitry Medvedev called on the country's public transit agencies to elevate their security measures. In addition, Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin vowed to uproot what he described as the terrorists responsible for the twin attacks. The head of the Russian intelligence services said that the 2 female suicide bombers were likely from the country's northern Caucasus region.
This is what Moscow looked like Monday morning, totally calm as residents started heading to work. However, incoming news from the Russian capital is anything but calm. Today, 2 explosions rocked the 2 busiest metro rail stations in Moscow. Dozens of people were killed and dozens of others were wounded in the blasts. The death toll is expected to rise. A spokeswoman for Russia's emergency ministry said that some of the passengers were killed at the second carriage of the metro train that stopped at the Lubyanka station in central Moscow. The spokeswoman added that the other victims were killed while waiting for the train at the platform. The General Prosecutor's Office, which launched an investigation, said that the twin blasts were carried out by suicide bombers. Moscow's mayor said that the attacks were carried out by 2 female suicide bombers. Until a clear picture is available, it seems that the official's explanation is likely, bringing back the memory of similar incidents that rocked the Russian capital, Moscow, in the past few years. Back then, the Russian authorities held activists from the country's northern Caucasus region responsible for the attacks. Over the past decade, the number of attacks had decreased. However, observers believe that today's twin attacks will raise questions regarding the role of the Russian Federation Intelligence Agency, known as the KGB during the Soviet era, especially considering its headquarters are just a few kilometers away from the train station.
مع اقتراب عيد الفصح اليهودي الحواجز تخنق مناطق الضفة الغربية.
With the approaching Jewish Passover holiday, Israeli military barriers are suffocating the West Bank territory. Under the pretext of security concerns, the Israeli authorities have elevated travel restrictions on Palestinians heading from the West Bank to Israel. In addition, Israel renewed restrictions on Palestinian visitors to Al-Aqsa Mosque, allowing access only to those over the age of 50 who hold a Jerusalem permanent ID card. The Israeli closure went into effect last night and is expected to last until April 6th. The situation in Jerusalem was strongly present in the Arab summit held in the Libyan city of Sirte. The summit wrapped up its last session with the announcement of an exceptional summit set to take place next October in Cairo. The purpose of the summit is to discuss ways to develop the Arab League, as well as launch the Arab Neighborhood Association. Arab leaders postponed issuing a decision regarding the stalled peace negotiations. They linked the resumption of the peace process to a complete halt of settlement construction in Jerusalem, urging the U.S. President to stand by his main decision on the issue. Our correspondent Ahmed Al-Kilani reports from Sirte.
Only one resolution has received the unanimous support of the Arab leaders gathering here in the Libyan city of Sirte, where the 22nd Arab League Summit was held. Arab leaders have pledged $500 million to help Jerusalemites counter the heinous Israeli settlement campaign. Other than that, most issues were postponed pending further review. Among the delayed issues were the resumption of the peace process and the formation of an Arab Union. The leaders agreed to form a committee to study the idea forming an Arab Union and submit its finding during an exceptional summit set to take place next October in Cairo. In addition, Arab leaders postponed a hearing on the formation of an Arab Neighborhood Association. Several countries have expressed reservations over the idea, especially regarding the opening of a dialogue with Iran.
Yes, we have reservations regarding the Iranian issue. The Arab League has differences over the issue of Iran. Yes, there are various positions. We are looking for the best way to administer our relations with Iran. In addition, the Arab League expressed some reservations over other regional issues, such as the issue of Iraq. Some have raised questions about these issues.
The Secretary General of the Arab League talked about alternative options in case the peace process fails. They did not include a military option, as some expected.
War is not an option. Any option must take into account all aspects, including economic, behavioral, cultural, scientific, and internal unity.
However, the Secretary General of the Arab League had his own assessment of the situation.
We may consider other options if it's confirmed that Israel exhausted all opportunities leading to the establishment and formation of an actual and sovereign Palestinian state. If there's no room for a two-state solution, there will be no Jewish state either.
The Arab Summit approved a Libyan proposal for holding a periodic Arab summit that meets semi-annually. However, it remains to be seen whether periodic Arab summits will lead to Arab unity. Ahmed Al-Kilani, Dubai TV, Sirte, Libya.
Security concerns among Arab leaders is one of the problems facing the upcoming Arab League summit in Libya. Usually the host country makes the security arrangements, but will there be special security arrangements this time around?
This is the first time that the summit is held in Libya, and as we know, there are security concerns, especially among some Arab leaders who have had disputes with Libya, in addition to some past security breaches. In the past, Arab leaders used to bring their special guards along with them to the Arab League summit. Will Libya allow this to happen? For example, Saddam Hussein used to bring an entire army with him, equipped with their own machine guns, and in some cases they used to bring armories. Will Libya allow Arab leaders to bring their own security apparati, or will Libyan security take over the responsibility of protecting Arab leaders? This is an important question, but there are more critical issues at hand.
One of these critical issues is the question of who will represent the Palestinians at the summit. So far, no one has cast doubt that President Mahmoud Abbas and the government in Ramallah are the legitimate representatives of the Palestinians.
This is a big problem because in reality, Palestinians are divided between Fatah in Ramallah and Hamas in Gaza. This raises questions about the legitimacy of each government, not so much for the Arab League, but more so for the entire world. Although the Palestinian Authority is recognized, it is still unclear who truly represents the Palestinian people. What would happen if the Hamas delegation were to enter the Arab summit and sit next to the Palestinian delegation? This would create a problem. When this issue was previously discussed, President Abbas threatened not to attend the summit. This problem will be further discussed at the summit. The big question is, will Palestinian reconciliation be achieved at the summit?
Another problem facing the summit is the Arab Peace Initiative. This initiative has been presented at every summit with some minor wording modifications. Is there a consensus on this initiative, or will we witness a surprise during the summit?
We know that during the Arab summit in Kuwait, all the Arab leaders agreed to the Arab Peace Initiative, but indicated that it will not be on the table forever. They said that if the peace initiative is not implemented, it will be frozen or withdrawn. In fact, some Arab countries demanded its freeze or suspension, and some even wanted to cancel the Arab Peace Initiative altogether because of the lack of response from the Israelis and the West. There are three trends in the Arab world. Some believe that a position must be taken on the Arab Peace Initiative, and that would be done by forming a delegation that would work with leading countries on formulating a mechanism for the implementation of the Arab Peace Initiative. They would set a specific time frame for what should take place on the first, second, and third month. However, today, things may change due to the stubbornness of Netanyahu's government, which refuses the peace talks and insists on settlement construction and on Jerusalem's Judification. Also, the situation has worsened because it proposed making the Ibrahimi Mosque part of the Jewish heritage sites. This leads me to believe that the Arab Peace Initiative will generate a heated debate at the summit. There will be an attempt to reach a middle ground solution that prevents the Arab Peace Initiative from getting cancelled, but at the same time sets a time frame for implementing this initiative or else.
In the meantime, U.S. President Barack Obama has paid a brief surprise visit to Afghanistan. He assured the American troops there that they will win the battle against the Taliban. Meanwhile, militants fired 3 rockets at Bagram airfield where Obama spoke to soldiers. NATO says the attack took place hours after the president ended his visit, leaving no casualties. The Taliban, however, say the missiles were fired into the base as Obama was leaving. They say the rockets caused heavy casualties.
How's it going, Bagram?
Afghanistan, Bagram Air Base, U.S. President Barack Obama outlining his war strategies.
We're going to deny al-Qaeda safe haven. We're going to reverse the Taliban's momentum. We're going to strengthen the capacity of Afghan security forces and the Afghan government. You will be backed up by a clear mission and the right strategy, and you will have the support to finish the job, to get the job done.
Obama's surprise visit comes at a time when official data released by the Pentagon show the number of U.S. troop fatalities have almost doubled in the first quarter this year as compared to the same period a year ago. Obama has already ordered the deployment of an extra 30,000 troops to Afghanistan, but experts say Obama's strategy may create even more resistance.
But what is the clear mission? If the clear mission is simply to defeat the Taliban, which is what it appears to be, since the number of troops keeps increasing, to defeat the Taliban by killing all of the Taliban, then I think this is, it's not only a very brutal strategy that will involve the deaths of many, many civilians, but it's very highly unlikely to succeed. In fact, many of the experts who followed the situation agree that that strategy leads to the creation of more resistance fighters against what they view as the illegal and unjust occupation of their country.
During his short visit, Obama also held talks with Afghan President Hamid Karzai, but in his almost 30-minute talks with the Afghan leader and his key cabinet members, the U.S. president had no assurances to offer except what he described as Washington's commitment to continued anti-corruption efforts in Afghanistan.
Israeli police have closed checkpoints in the occupied West Bank ahead of the Jewish holiday of Passover. Security was tight in and around Jerusalem's Old City, with about 2,500 policemen deployed. Only men above the age of 50 were allowed into the Al-Aqsa compound. Meanwhile, residents of the West Bank town of Bethlehem were stopped at a checkpoint where soldiers inspected them and their cars before allowing them to cross into Jerusalem. Also in Bethlehem, dozens of Palestinians marched towards an Israeli checkpoint in protest against the arrest of Fatah Central Committee leader Abbas Zaki. Demonstrators hurled stones as Israeli troops responded with stun grenades. The Palestinian Authority dismissed Israeli allegations that President Mahmoud Abbas urged Israel to topple Hamas in the Gaza war last year. Abbas aide Nabil Aburdaini accused the Israeli government of trying to deepen the deadlock over U.S.-sponsored efforts to revive negotiations. Aburdaini said the remarks by Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman were a continuation of the Israeli campaign of defamation to create an atmosphere that would destroy any chance of salvaging the peace process. Lieberman was not in government during the Gaza war, which raises the question on what he based his allegations on. Meanwhile, Israel will allow a shipment of clothes and shoes to be delivered to Palestinians in the Gaza Strip for the first time in its almost 3-year-old blockade of the enclave. Palestinian officials said the first 10 truckloads would be arriving via the Israeli-controlled Gaza border point on Thursday. Israel is under international pressure to relax its blockade, which is punishing Gaza's 1.5 million people. At least 5 people were killed and 64 others wounded in 2 car bombs in the Iraqi city of Karbala, south of Baghdad. The bombs hit a restaurant and a security checkpoint 1 kilometer from the Imam Hussein Shrine, one of the holiest Shiite sites. After the blast, police heightened security around the Imam Ali Shrine in the Shiite holy city of Najaf. Elsewhere, a car bomb killed 1 person in the Dura district of southern Baghdad, and 2 civilians were wounded in western Baghdad's Mansour district. Despite a fall in violence, a series of explosions in recent weeks has underscored the country's fragile security as it struggles to end years of sectarian violence. Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan said he does not favor imposing economic sanctions to pressure Iran into showing that it has no covert nuclear weapons program. Erdogan said at a joint news conference with German Chancellor Angela Merkel in Ankara that Turkey is of the view that sanctions are not a healthy path and the best route is diplomacy. Merkel urged Ankara to be ready to support the imposition of sanctions through the UN unless Iran shows transparency to assure the international community that it has no ambitions for nuclear weapons. Erdogan raised doubts about the effectiveness of sanctions and the results of 3 earlier rounds of milder sanctions against Iran. The Turkish Prime Minister said his country was against nuclear weapons in the region, but added that another country in the region possessed weapons and has not been subjected to sanctions, an apparently veiled reference to Israel.
في غضون ذلك أقر جيش الاحتلال الأمريكي مقتل أحد جنوده في
The U.S. occupation army reported the death of one of its soldiers during a clash in Baghdad, but did not provide any details about the clash or the number of injured soldiers. This comes at a time when the air base that the occupation forces considered to be their headquarters was violently attacked by rockets. 3 rockets fell on the base and smoke was seen coming out of it.
For
the past week, the Iraqi resistance has continued its quality operations by inflicting more losses on the occupation's soldiers and equipment.
في الوقت الذي انشغل شركاء الاحتلال في مسرحية فرز أصوات الناخبين.
While the occupation's accomplices are busy engaging in the vote-counting drama, Iraq's resistance factions continued their relentless strikes on occupation forces, causing massive human and financial losses. During the last 7 days, the Land of the Two Rivers witnessed a series of high-level operations, making the occupation taste the bitterness of its own medicine. The Rafedin army, a front for the Jihad and Change faction, and a component of the United Committee for Authorized Factions, fired 5 Hasib rockets on the U.S. occupation embassy in Baghdad. The rockets directly hit their target and had a great outcome. This took place as the Tabayin army, another front for the Jihad and Change faction, and a component of the United Committee for Authorized Factions, fired a rocket on a U.S. occupation base in the Qadi in northern Baghdad as part of the Inscription on the Occupation's Bases operation. The rocket accurately hit its target.
وفي السياق نفسه تبنى جماعة أنصار السنة الهيئة الشرعية قصف قاعدة قوات.
In the same context, the legal institution Sunni Supporters Community fired Katyusha rockets on a U.S. occupation base at Baghdad International Airport, west of Baghdad. It reached its target.
التابع لقوات الاحتلال الأمريكية في منطقة التاج شمالية بغداد.
The factions also fired a number of Halun rockets on the Simthiyat airport, which belongs to the U.S. occupation forces in the Taji region of northern Baghdad. The attack was direct and accurate. Meanwhile, the Islamic Army and Iraqi resistance faction used an explosive device to bomb a battleship that belongs to the U.S. occupation army, killing and injuring its crew.
إذ استهدفت دبابة له من نوع سترايكر بمحافظة.
The Islam supporters community inflicted more losses on the occupation forces by targeting its Stryker tank in the Diyala province. It also launched a rocket attack on a U.S. occupation military base in the Qadi al-Hawija in Tamim province. The attack was accurate. Meanwhile, Iraqi resistance factions fired a number of Katyusha rockets on a U.S. military base in Qadi al-Muqtadiyya in Diyala province. They hit the target directly and accurately.
كانت الإصابة دقيقة ومباشرة. وفي محافظة القادسية تبنت فصائل المقاومة.
In Qadisiyya province, resistance factions used an explosive device to inflict damage on a vehicle that belongs to the U.S. occupation, killing its crew. The chief goal of the resistance factions remains to drive the occupation forces out of Iraq and liberate the land of the two rivers, and preserve the unity of Iraq and its Arab identity.
A
number of British bishops wrote a letter to the British Daily Telegraph newspaper condemning what they described as religious persecution that Christians in Britain are subjected to.
The
health authority in Britain has barred British nurse Shirley Chaplin from doing her job because of a dispute over a cross that she wears around her neck during work. According to a document from the hospital that employs Shirley, the health authority considered it a violation of the nurse's uniform policy at work. This case prompted 6 prominent bishops, in addition to Lord Carey, former Archbishop of Canterbury, to write a letter to the Sunday Telegraph and express their concern over the discrimination and even persecution of Christians in Britain. These bishops said that Christians are being persecuted in a country with a long Christian history, citing as examples the fact that Christians' opinions are never considered when political parties discuss laws pertaining to sex education in schools or homosexual rights. They said that British people had varied opinions on these matters.
I think it's crazy,
quite frankly, that they don't allow the nurse to wear a cross. In my entire life, I've never seen that happen. But that does not justify referring to the situation of Christians in Britain as persecution. That's ridiculous.
I won't take off this cross for whatever reason, even if it means that I will lose my job. Of course, what is happening is persecution.
Contrary to the news reports that the hospital is preventing Shirley from doing her job for wearing a cross, Muslim women are allowed to wear their headscarves while doing similar work. This compelled Shirley to file a lawsuit against the hospital. Some believe that these lawsuits and counter-lawsuits have a negative effect.
Every philosophy will have...
When opinionated judgments are allowed, every philosophy will have some negative effects, no matter what. These effects include arbitrariness and a lack of consistency in lawmaking.
In the same judicial context, Nadia, an employee at British Airlines, had won the right to wear a headscarf in a previous case. And Al-Bushra filed a lawsuit against the salon that dismissed her as a hairdresser for wearing the headscarf. Ilian, whose work involves dealing with civil marriage, refused to register same-sex marriages and started a judicial battle for her right to refuse. Some Christians believe that they are being persecuted here in Britain, which is historically known as one of Christianity's bases. Meanwhile, some Muslims think that they are restricted in their practice of their rituals. A third opinion believes that secularism is growing, officially and publicly, and that religion no longer ignites the minds or influences the behavior of Britons. From in front of Westminster Cathedral in London, Mohammed Taha, BBC.
A tourist resort thrives on nature's luster in the middle of Jordan's Dana Nature Reserve. Surrounded by candlelight and the scent of plants, this hotel remains unmarred by the urban bustle.
This hotel is made from nature. It is called the Feinan Eco Lodge, located in Jordan's Dana Nature Reserve. Electricity here is provided by solar energy and is only used in the dining hall, the administration, and the bathrooms.
Solar energy generates electricity that we store in batteries and use at night. From this respect, we are not connected to the power network, nor do we use any diesel to generate electricity.
Calm prevails in the bedrooms, which are only lit by candles. Here, becoming one with nature is imperative. The architecture, the furniture, and the dim lighting are all environmentally friendly. The atmosphere can almost be described as poetic. The main entrance, the internal and external corridors, and the dining hall are all lit by candles.
There is a candle factory inside the hotel. We hire young men and women from the region to work on producing the candles daily.
The menu provides an assortment of the most delicious foods, which are all vegetarian.
It fits really well with the environment surrounding the hotel, and we love the idea of using no electricity.
The nature of the building and its location far away from the bustle and noise of the city attracts a large number of tourists who are looking for peace and calm in a captivating environment. Diana Abu Zaid Duwaini, Al-Arabiya.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible from support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news. Read our blog. Get transcripts of past shows and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.